Hey guys, this is Vadu. For those that don't know me, I'm a level 275 Shade in Reboot, and I'm just a couple months away from liberating my Genesis weapon. At the same time, me and my party were getting ready for Siren, and we hope to be one of the first few parties in Reboot to clear. Today, I have a conversation about the future of the endgame in Maplestory and the direction that the game design is going. This is Vadu, and this is my words. Alright, so my guest tonight is Snizze. Snizze is a level 275 Thunderbreaker, and he's not just any Thunderbreaker. He was the first ever level 275 Thunderbreaker in GMS Reboot, as well as the first GMS Reboot Thunderbreaker to clear Black Mage with me back in June. He also runs his own Maple Relay YouTube channel, which I'll post a link to in the description below. So Snizze, did I leave anything out there? How are you doing tonight?
No, I don't think you left anything of out of that. Not quite used to hearing all my accomplishments, strung together so
Yeah.
perfectly in one sentence, but I'm feeling pretty good. A bit under the weather, unfortunately, but I'm hanging in there.
For sure, for sure. So, like I said, this is obviously the first ever podcast that we've done. And the reason why I wanted to do it is because we're kind of at a pretty interesting time in Maple at the moment. We're just a couple weeks away from our winter patch. We're waiting to see what's in the KMS winter update. And, right now a lot of people are just kind of at a crossroads with the game. And I think one of the biggest gripes that they have is there just doesn't really seem to be any immediate direction with the game past Black Mage. So we're kind of at that weird spot where, Black Mage is still a big deal for a lot of people, and I don't really want to take anything away from those people because it definitely takes a lot of time, work, dedication to even get to the point where you're, running Black Mage. But for a good chunk of those in-game players, Black Mages honestly became kind of a joke. I mean, I think you saw that with our last run that we had. I mean, we don't even really take it all that serious anymore. It's a 15-minute run, 15-20 minute run, and that's really comfortable. So like after Black Mage, honestly, it kind of feels like a DLC content for a game that you've already beat. It's kind of fun initially, but that soon wears off, and you kind of realize that it's not really necessary, and it just kind of lacks any kind of content or direction. So with that being said, it kind of leads me to my first question that I have for you tonight. What's your general thoughts on the end game right now? Like, do you have any gripes with it? Do you think it's in a good spot? Um, just kind of like, what do you feel toward the end game right now?
To put it lightly, it's underwhelming. The content drip has been very slow, and it's time gated as well because they give us a boss or two, but it's handed behind these time gates. And then even if it's not, it's in the case of the slime boss that's upcoming in our in our winter patch, it contains a piece of gear, and thankfully it has a decent drop rate, at least from what we're seeing in Korea. But the equip balancing versus class balancing versus like just content drip feed, like the events are lackluster. They're kind of rehashes of what we've been getting over and over again. It's some event stats, it's a coin shop, and an introduction of a few new mechanics, maybe. Like I don't. There's very little to look forward to, as you've said. Like it's like once you get past the big hump that is Black Mage, like there's not really much to see. Like there's Saren on the horizon, but even then, like a lot of the parties that are looking to run Saren are still not even planning to run until January when we have enough Sacred Force to even attempt it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely one of the issues. I do know that there are some people, including you and I, we're looking forward to running Saren, but, honestly, there's a lot of Black Mage parties that really doesn't have any interest whatsoever in running Saren. Like I know quite a bit of people who literally are just doing Grandest dailies so they can, efficiently train in, Hotel Arcs or, obviously get the free stat. But as far as like Saren the boss, I don't think that it's something that a lot of people are really excited about. And I think obviously one of the reasons being is because the main reward from it is a pitch boss item, which, you know, people like pitch boss items, but at the same time though, it's like it's just another one of those things where it's all or nothing. You either run it for a year straight and you don't get anything, or you get lucky and you get the drop. Um, so other than that, like I said, obviously right now everything just pretty much seems like it's just time gated. Right now, it's literally after Black Mage, you're just doing dailies, and you're just waiting for more content to come out. So again, it's that really weird crossroads of like, what exactly should I be doing right now? I know a lot of people making secondary mains. A lot of people are kind of just taking a break from the game until more stuff comes out. So, it's honestly at a not very good spot in my opinion. Um, and then kind of making things more interesting with that, as far as the GMS side of it, especially reboot. We have the final damage patch coming out very soon. Um, do you have any thoughts about the final damage patch? I mean, do you think it's a good thing to bring over? Do you think it's a bad thing? Just what's your thoughts about that?
I come from it from a really weird perspective because I play just objectively one of the weakest classes in the game. So it gives me like this weird perspective on it, how it seems like a suitable change because it's overall makes the game easier to balance. Like you're not balancing around a stat that is like you don't want too much of, right? Like when you get to optimization, like the way the formula works, damage and boss damage being combined makes for a messy formula. Just giving it a making it a flat multiplier for the world makes more sense. So players can like take more control over what stat they want to get, especially on WSE, familiars, yada yada yada. But in terms of final damage, for me personally, I'm looking forward to it because it makes content that I should be capable of doing more attainable. But I can see for like people that play stronger classes or classes that don't struggle nearly as much in certain content areas, like hard bosses, especially for liberation missions. I can see it as like, like you're just undermining my achievements.
Yeah, that's another question I was going to ask. So, do you kind of feel like, do you think that there's going to be a stigma on people for people that clear certain bosses or solo certain bosses after the final damage change? Like, do you think that people, um, especially the ones who've already done it prior to the final damage change, like, do you think that there's going to be some undermining there? Just kind of like that elitist feel. Do you think any of that stuff's going to happen?
I think in like any competitive gaming scene, especially like in MMOs, especially. I mean, not to say it's not in other genres, but elitism will just always be present. Like it relates to everyday life. Back in my day, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um, there's always going to be people comparing to like what it was originally. Like EXP rates have like getting to 200 originally was like a feat in itself. It took years, and now you're doing it in like one sitting.
for sure.
Like now getting to 250, people had one 250 and that was their main. And like even then, that took like almost an entire year for the first 250 grinders. 275, while a lot quicker because of the EXP curve and like spawn enhancers and all that, still very competitive grind. And now we see people pushing like 275 characters and now pushing to the 280s and beyond as well on their main.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like now, like you were saying, I mean, level 250 is pretty much just became another like Legion goal for a lot of people. And in any sort of like MMORPG, there's going to be power creep. I think one of my frustrations with the final damage change and a lot of other people's frustration with it is it's just, I mean, if you look at it from just the numbers, it's probably the largest final damage change that, or not final damage change, but one of the largest power creep changes that we've ever had, like just instantly. And it's not like it's through any sort of equipment or anything like that. It's just a universal. They're taking a paintbrush and they're just throwing final damage at everyone, hoping it's going to solve the certain issues. I know it's a very
Especially
lazy approach that they're taking to it, but um, again, like you were saying, I don't really think you can fault the players for it. At the end of the day, the players, they're just going to play the game the way that the only way that they can. They don't necessarily have any control over the final damage changes or not. I know a lot of people that are currently trying to rush to solo bosses before the final damage change comes. That way they can just say like, hey, I did this without the final damage change. And while I get that from kind of like a um, competitive and sort of like ego perspective, at the same time though, um, I do know that a lot of people were kind of down talking people who wanted to do things after the final damage change, and that kind of leads me to my next question as well. So since we're kind of talking about the final damage change, we also have duo liberation. Do you kind of share the same thoughts with duo liberation as well? Like, do you Like, what's your general thoughts about that? Did you think that them implementing duo liberation was a good thing for the game? Obviously there were some classes that really struggled to do it solo. I mean, for some classes it was just straight up impossible. Like, so do you think duo liberation was a good way to go about it? And kind of as a continuation of that, personally, I thought you should either introduce duo liberation or you should introduce the final damage patch, but not both of them. And right now, we're obviously going to have both of them. So just expand on that and share your thoughts about that.
Okay, so for me, I think Duo Liberation was an absolute cop out on Nexon's part. I think it was an excuse to say we don't have to fix like certain boss mechanics that were abysmal solo content wise, like the fact that like you had to in Will P1 for doing the eye phase. They've changed it now in Korea so you can hit the same side to spawn golden orbs on your side.
Hmm.
But before that, you either had to iframe after the 20 seconds had passed, or you had to have a summon on the specific side. I think it's blue side to spawn orbs for you while you're waiting. And even then, that can be hit or miss depending on the summon hitting the eye.
Hmm.
So I think it was an absolute cop out to avoid fixing the inherent issues with soloing some of these bosses, which then they eventually did go and fix because people are still trying to solo these bosses consistently week to week. On topic of duo liberation and final damage change, I think I'm with you on that one. I think it should have been one or the other. Final damage pushes us way over the edge, and it's interesting that you brought up the number statistics because familiars on average, I think, were like 15% final damage for most players,
Hmm.
and this is like over double that on average for most
Yeah.
players. So
And
it's a ridiculous amount of power creep.
yeah, and again, I just want to interject there. Obviously when Familiar first came out, everyone was at Junior Boogies for the first. I can't remember how long it lasted. I think it was like two or 3 days. I remember this was back whenever I was in beaters, and I remember there was like 8 of us in the map all together, and I just had like my little corner. I was only killing like 2 or 3 Junior Boogies at once, and I stayed there and I farmed. God, I probably farmed a few thousand of them. But so I'm not really gonna call that like having to do any sort of major work. It wasn't really like it was a grind. I mean, it was
Yep.
really fairly easy to get that 30% boss um, or relevant, lines from the familiars initially. But again, at least you had to do something. You had to unlock the familiar badges and you had to obviously roll the lines yourself. With this, it's just like, here you go. Here's final damage. This is how we're gonna fix it. So I don't know. And again, it's I think it should just be one or the other. I think honestly, you know, we were kind of talking about Black Mage kind of being not necessarily watered down, but again, because I don't want to take away from anyone who's currently thinking about running Black Mage. I don't want to like discredit your achievements because again, it's definitely the hardest boss in the game. It's you worked hard to get to that point, and I don't want to seem like I'm talking down on people, but at the same time though, like, and I don't want to sound like elitist myself here, but it's just like people liberating after this, like after you have the final damage patch, and then especially with duo liberation on top of it, it's just like it's almost expected that you liberate now, like instead of something um, that you really, really have to, work hard with the mechanics of things, because I think that's one of GMS's problems. It's like people, they just use the brute force method. They're like, oh, I'm having trouble with this boss, so let me just get stronger. And you know what I mean? Like instead of actually like working hard at the boss. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I don't mean to interject too much, but like that brings me back to like when I first started running Black Mage. Before like I actually got like serious about running this boss and saying like I want to conquer this, I want to get through it, I want to just beat it down. I want to accomplish this. Like I showed up to my first run having just skimmed the document on like what curses do what. I wasn't even entirely sure which attacks gave what curse. After that first beatdown that we were handed, and my party leader at the time saying to me, "You're not just wasting your own key. You're wasting everyone else's key and their time." Like that's when it got through to me that
yeah,
like this fight and like any boss fight is not it's not just your time that you're using, it's everyone else's time that you're using too. So like you have to be appreciative and respectful of that.
for
So
sure.
like
And I, I
like
I was just gonna say, just super quickly, and that's the good thing with Black Mage. Black Mage really is the first boss that we saw in a long time, or probably the first boss, honestly, ever, that people have to take it as serious as, as serious that if you have to take it, like with doing VOD reviews,
Absolutely.
asking around, asking other classes who have cleared Black Mage, asking for help. In the case for yourself, there was, you were obviously the first Thunderbreaker to clear Black Mage, so, you didn't necessarily have
Just
anyone.
in reboot, just in
Yeah,
reboot. But yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
reboot to clarify,
Always want
yeah.
to make that apparent. Don't want to take away from the main server
For
accomplishers
sure,
because
for
they,
sure.
yeah, yeah.
But again, it's obviously a much bigger issue. It's something that you just can't go in, completely blind, hoping that you can just brute force it, because that's not going to work in Black Mage.
Absolutely not. Um, yeah, I was trying to segue into the fact that like Black Mage is going to be more of a watered down boss, but like you said, that happens with power creep, which is also kind of a topic I wanted to talk about too. Is like how it's a weird design decision to give like the most powerful item, like the best in slot weapon, like the end all be all, to a boss that is getting slowly but surely phased out. Like I thought that was just interesting that they would give something that is not meant to be topped, or if it gets topped, it's just going to be like an upgrade to the inherent weapon. Like it
Yeah,
just boggles my mind like that you'd finally make the big bad accomplishable. Like you can take it down, and then you're stuck with this weapon that is not supposed to be surpassed in any way, shape, or form.
yeah, because it's like, what do you do after that? Like, I mean, obviously, you can look at some gear and you can see some pretty obvious upgrades from that, from those
Yep.
particular pieces. I'm looking at CRA, who's been around since I think 2013 off the top of my head. So, CRA has been around for literally almost a decade. So,
Yep.
you have candidates there that can easily be upgraded. But, um, like you were saying, as far as your weapon, it's like, where do you go after Black Mage? From a design perspective, that makes sense. Like, what do you do after that, if anything? So it kind of like, you're really limiting yourself by watering it down and making it that much easier.
Yep.
So
I feel they're designing themselves or like cornering their options.
mhm.
Like they're limiting their options on where they can expand to. So that just also brings me back to like with like why content might be slow. It might be because they're limited on where they can go.
Yeah, well, they definitely are dragging it out as far as they can, which kind of
Yep.
leads me into my next topic. Um, so, just from basically what we saw and what we've heard, it doesn't seem like we should really expect all that much to come from the winter patch in KMS. So, everyone knows about the Explorer revamp, and I'm happy for the Explorers that need it, but for the rest of us, sadly, from a content perspective, that really seems like all the KMS winter patch is going to offer us, at least from what we know. So with that being said, obviously our next major hope for any content change is going to be KMS summer patch of 2022, which means GMS winter patch of 2022. So unless they just really surprise us with something in the winter KMS winter patch this year, unless they throw us a curveball, like, it really seems like the earliest that we're going to get a continuation of in-game content is going to be winter patch of 2022, which is a full year from now.
Wow,
So with that,
it's ways off.
yeah. So with that being said, um, if there is some sort of curveball in the KMS winter patch that they're going to show us, or if there's anything specifically in the year 2022, whether it be in the summer patch or, and they could surprise us. They could just add it in, because we typically expect major content to really come from the summer and from the winter patch, but they could surprise us. I'm leaving that possibility out there. So with that being said, are there anything specifically that you're looking forward to in 2022 as far as content wise? Like,
With things that are confirmed or
just complete speculation.
oh,
Like,
it's complete speculation.
yeah, like,
Oh,
what I'm asking you, would you
like
like to,
what my hopes are.
yeah, like, would you like to see, like another area for, Grandis?
Honestly,
Would you like to see
I
more
like
bosses or anything like that?
so GMS specifically, I want to see touch-ups to the NLC area. It's my favorite area of the game, and I want to see touch-ups, and I want to see more done with that and like expanded on and actually like hashed out and made authentic. Like done well. But in terms of like end game like progression stuff, I just want to see the hard boss set like made relevant. Not necessarily relevant, but I wanted to made it I want there to be some consistency and like, feel like you're making progress towards a goal, not just like you're slamming your head against the wall hoping something drops and then to go spend, like, up to like 50 bill just to see an item boom on you.
Yeah,
Like I want to see like there's like some solid progress that can be made because we don't have the option to just like buy another one or trade for another one. And like yes, they're super expensive items either way in main servers, but like at least that option is available to you. You don't have to just rely solely on your once a week chance at a drop.
for sure. And that's
I think that's my
obviously,
big thing.
yeah, for sure. And I completely understand that frustration. I think I can speak on that. If anyone talks to me on a regular basis, they probably know my opinion about this. Um, so, with that being said, as far as the pitch boss items that you're referring to, um, obviously a lot of that kind of philosophy is a regular server versus reboot server design problem that is a much larger conversation than what we have time for in today's podcast. Um, but with that, I would just like to throw out the idea for you because this is something that I've talked about before. So obviously having that RNG element of getting a drop, that's a good thing to a lot of people. It's a huge dopamine hit. Like everyone, if anyone's ever gotten a pitch boss item drop, you know how you feel when that happens. When you finally see it appear, now they made the gear even larger when they drop. So now it's like it's really right in front of you. So you're definitely gonna get excited about it. It's gonna feel good. But like you were saying, unfortunately, you have to star force it if it's anything other than a book um, or an emblem coming from Saren, so you have to star force it. What I have kind of thrown out as an idea, how would you feel? And I'm just so say you have the say in this. How would you feel about basically like the Chaos Root Abyss pieces? Like how you kill the
Hmm.
boss and you get like a certain amount of pieces. How would you feel if you got certain amount of pieces from a boss that you could eventually trade in for like a say a magic eye patch? So just say on average you had to kill Damien hard. Say on average you had to kill hard Damien. I don't know. We'll just throw out a number. Say you had to kill him 30 times in order to get enough pieces to redeem for a magic eye patch. Do you think that would be a good change? Like, do you think that's the right direction to go into, or do you think that it should just continue to be drops, but maybe like increase the drop rate? What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, honestly, I think it should be a mix of both. I mean, obviously numbers need to be tweaked, but like I think there should always be that chance at the raw drop because like that is a thrill like no other. Like when you see the raw drop. But like if it had to be one or the other, I definitely think tokens would be the better way to do it.
Yeah,
Just so it's more consistent, especially when it's like comes to items that are boomable. Like that's the big thing is like the fact that you can make an item unusable and unequipable is the issue with it. Is with having them so rare and so desired at the same time.
for sure. And that's like one of the things that I've said is like I would like it to be both. So like not only would you get the tokens, but you would also still have the chance to receive the drop. So you still have that instant satisfaction from getting a drop, but at the same time it's almost as a pity timer that hey, you're not gonna go like I know Nikki, for example, she's went well over 100 runs from both Hard Damien and Hard Lotus without a drop. So it's like, that's almost 2 years of
Yeah,
running the boss without, and it's not like, if she ran the boss 100 times, it's not like her 101st time it's still the same drop rate percentage. There's no pity timer. So it's not like, oh, I'm almost there. It's like me with my Papulatus mark. I've ran Papulatus in my main well over 150 times, which is almost
oh Jesus
three
Christ, three
years worth.
years,
Yeah,
holy.
and it's like, how is that good game design? Like, I get that there should be some items that are hard to get, and there should be some RNG element to it, but at the same time, that is so depressing, and that is such a turnoff from people, you know, playing the
Yeah,
game. I just think that's a pretty easy decision that I would make, but obviously it's not up to us. It's just kind of a brainstorm idea that I thought that I would ask you and see how you felt about it.
oh, I think it's a lovely idea. I just don't think next one is
Yeah.
in the business of making any sort of pity or ceilings to our pain.
I don't think so. They honestly have surprised me though with some changes that they have implemented this year. Granted, a lot of that probably stemmed from them, the whole flame debacle.
Yeah.
A,
Oh goodness.
a lot of the good quality of life changes that we've had has been basically them trying to kiss up to us.
Yep.
And without that flame debacle, I'm not 100% positive that we would have received any of that stuff. So,
I'm still wondering how long they would let it like sit under the rug
for
before like
sure.
it actually came out that like flames were a mess.
For sure. All right. So Sniz, that was about it for me. I just had one last, just super kind of like bonus segment question. So it does seem, from what people have data mined from the most recent patch, it does seem like we will be getting vac pets in reboot. So I just wanted to ask you just super quickly, what's your general thoughts about vac pets in reboot? Do you think they're like too expensive? Are you gonna get one? Do you think that they're creating a pay to win environment in reboot? And then in addition to that, I think from the KMS vac pets, there is a set effect on them, and I mean, again, it's if you want the set effect, which all three pets, I think
Oh
it's
yeah.
like 300 something dollars, but I think it was like around, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was
It's
around
over
like,
60 attack.
was
It's
it?
like it's like over 60 attack or
Yeah,
some
I
shit.
knew it
It's
was. I knew it
ridiculous.
was around 50 attack. But yeah, so that's that's almost. I mean, it's still quite a bit a ways, but that's almost like having an apple, basically.
Yeah, it's like having two guild buffs active at all time.
Yeah. So
Like,
just kind of like, what's your opinion about that? And I know that's like a lot of different questions built into one, but
oh yeah, that's a very difficult one. On the concept of back pets coming to reboot just as a whole, I like. But it's a super slippery slope with how they implement it, of course, because like yes, it is kind of like a paywall for some people, but I feel like the flexibility that back pets give to farming maps and like how efficient you have to be with like your looting, your farming, your training, I think it opens up so many possibilities that the people that do want to invest in them, it does more good for the game than it does bad because it moves people out of maps and gives them options. On the flip side, I do see that the pricing point is an issue. And then on topic of the set effect, it shouldn't exist. It just absolutely should not exist.
mhm. I think I genuinely agree with that. I'm honestly fine with them. I mean, as far as the pricing goes, that's I don't know. That's
Yeah, it's up in the air for me.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
I don't really have one strong opinion about that, one way or another. But I do kind of, with the set of, but again, it's like, realistically, there are going to be some wells that will get all three of them for the set
yep.
effect. But that's, I, I don't know. I'm not going to throw like a number of people that I think that will do it, but it has to be a very small amount of people who are actually going to actually get all three of them and
Yeah,
continue
because
to
that's a
pay the monthly
50
subscription.
bucks.
Yeah,
Almost 50 bucks a month, yeah.
yeah. Because it's just like it's not necessary, especially with the final damage stuff.
Oh,
But
absolutely not.
yeah, but at the same time, it's like, well, why does it even exist to begin with? Like, are the vac pets by themselves not good enough? Then you have to add a set effect on top of it. I don't know, but I just thought that was a fun little question to add in there toward the end. Well, Sniz, I appreciate your time here so much. I think this is really fun. I think a lot of people are going to get some different perspectives about it. I would like to reach out to you, and this is why I reached out to you originally, just to kind of see what you thought about it, because I know, you think about a lot of these questions a lot, and I think people would value to hear your opinion about it. So, again, I definitely appreciate your time on the podcast tonight. Is there anything that you want to add before we wrap it up?
Buff TB.
Buff TP. All right. Well, thank you, Sniz. You have a good night, okay?
You as well.
Thanks.